Hi, Joshua and Daniel. This is me, Diana, Miss Diana, and I was gonna tell you a little Easter story with these eggs. All right. I wish you were here because then you could help me out, but it'll work out all right. What I'm gonna do is in each of these eggs there's something, and see if you were here I could hear you talk to me, but I can't hear you talk to me now, but I know you will because your daddy will be there. So what I'm going to do is open each egg and see what it is, and I'm going to show you or tell you or explain to you what that has to do with Easter, okay? What that has to do with Easter, okay? The first egg we open up, and it's a little donkey. There's a donkey. And what do you think that has to do with Easter? Any of you know? Well, I wish I could have it so you could see it better. In Jesus' day, when Jesus was alive, they didn't have automobiles like we do, and they walked everywhere. And they walked into the city, and right before Easter, Jesus was going into Jerusalem, and he was riding a donkey. And all the people were all excited that he was there, and they thought he was going to be their king and save them from all these Romans that were making them give all kinds of money and everything. And the people were so happy, they spread the palm branches, you remember, on the ground, and they put their clothes on there, and so Jesus could walk and on there, and they were waving palm branches because they thought he was going to be the king. And that's what the donkey has to do. That was right before Easter. Okay, that's a donkey, all right? I wonder if I can put this, let's see if I can use this box a minute. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, here we go. We'll use this box. And I'll put that donkey right there. Let's go this way. I don't mind it. Okay, here we are. There, so there's the donkey. Okay, now the next egg. I don't want to spend too much time on this because, ooh boy, let's see what this is. There's also verses that maybe your daddy can read that goes with this. Each egg has a verse to go with it. But he knows where the verses are, and he can read them to you. And what do you think this is? 30 pieces of silver here. 10, 20, 30 pieces of silver. What would that have to do with Easter? Well, tell you the truth, not everybody was happy with Jesus and thinking he was going to be king. Number one, the Romans weren't happy because that would mean they would lose their power. And they love the power. You know how that goes. But also, and they didn't want to see Jesus. And they didn't like him at all. But there was also somebody else. And he was, let me see how they explain it here. It said he was a pretender. And he only pretended to be happy. He was one of Jesus's followers, but he just pretended to be happy. And his name was Judas Iscariot. And so these men needed somebody to show them where Jesus was because they didn't know, but Judas knew all the time. So Judas said, I'll show you where Jesus is if you give me 30 pieces of silver. And that's what happened. So that's the 30 pieces of silver. Now we got our next egg. Come on, page. Okay. In this egg, we have a little cup. Yep, it's like a chalice cup. And if I think you go to a Catholic school, so you might know this is as a chalice or something like that. But anyways, this is a cup. And Jesus had a meal before he died, and he told everybody, he gave everyone a drink. And then he said something that was kind of hard for them to understand. He said, this cup is my blood. But he didn't mean really. He was symbolizing that the wine in there was a symbol of his blood, like a picture of his blood. And he wanted them to remember this special night because he gave them a promise to all of them. And do you know what that promise was? That he gave them? Well, if you keep listening, you're going to find out, okay? So there's the cup. The next egg. Joshua, would you like to open this egg? Very good. Okay. And Daniel, what is this? That's right, it's a praying hands. The praying hands. And I bet you even know what that stands for Easter, because after they had, their meal, and they went out to the garden, didn't they? And Jesus prayed. And Jesus was willing to give his life. He knew what was going to happen. He knew he'd have to die. But Jesus was like no other person in the whole world. I mean, because he was part God and he was part man. He was God and he was man. So in other words, the God part of him, the Jesus part of him wanted to obey his Father, but the man part of him didn't want to be hurt and die on the cross. And all that terrible, cruel punishment. He didn't want that. So he prayed and he said, God, please somehow take this away from me. But then he said, but not what I want, but what you want. I'll obey. And so that's why he was praying in the garden. And when you're afraid or sad, you can pray too, can't you? And I know you guys do pray at night before you go to bed, and that's very important. Okay, so now we have the next one. Oh boy, this. Now, you probably can't tell what this is, but it's a whip, and it's all curled up. Like that, how they do the whip, and they go, and wraps around them and pull it like that. And that whip was very strong, and it had pieces of glass and stone and all that tied on it. So once they and wrapped around him, and then they pulled it, and it ripped his skin, and it made him very bloody, and it hurt a lot. And he didn't do anything wrong. Jesus didn't do anything wrong. He was perfect, but he allowed them to whip him. He could have stopped them, but he didn't stop them because he knew what he had to do. Okay. Okay, let's see. Daniel, your turn. You got to open up this one. Okay, abracadabra. Poof, thank you, Daniel. And, I think you guys know what this is. I really do. What's this guy? That's a rooster. Now, and I hear that all the time I talk to Harvey on the phone. It's in the background. Okay, so anyways, what does a rooster have to do with Easter? I bet you didn't know your rooster had something to do with Easter, huh? Well, it does. It really does. Because Peter was one of Jesus' disciples, and he was a follower of Jesus. And he was one of his closest friends. And he told Jesus, I don't care what happens to you. I don't care. I'm going to be dedicated to you. I'm committed to you. I will follow you always. I will always be loyal to you, Jesus. And Jesus said, well, Peter, I don't think so. He said, yes, I will. And Jesus said, well, you know what? Before the rooster crows tonight, 2 times, before it crows, you're going to deny me 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And Peter thought, yeah, no way, I would never deny you. I love you. And sure enough, while Jesus was being hauled away and all that, somebody said, Peter, I saw you hanging out with Jesus. Oh, no, not me. And he did that 3 times. And the 3rd time he did it, guess what happened? And just like that, Peter felt devastated. And he ran away. And he was so sad that he denied his Lord. So that's how the rooster has to do with Easter. Now, let's see, we'll go on. We're halfway there, boys. We're halfway there, okay? Here we go. Some of them are hard to open. There. Okay. I better turn my page. And this is, let's see if you can see what that is. The crown of thorns. They took the crown of thorns and they weaved it all around, and then they smashed it on his head. And again, Jesus bled. Well, he could have stopped those men from hurting him, but he let them continue. Do you know why? Because even though he had done nothing wrong, Jesus was taking our punishment for our sin. Because somebody has to take the punishment for our sin. And sin is anything that you do wrong, or you say, or you think, any way you act that doesn't make Jesus happy. If you disobey your daddy, if you lie to your daddy, if you steal, if you sneak around and do something wrong, those are all sins, and we all do them. Everybody in this world sins. And that's why Jesus had to die on the cross, because he had to take all of our sin and he put all that sin on him. And you know how you feel bad when you do something wrong? That's Jesus had to take all those sins on himself, and he took our punishment. He died for us, okay? So that's the thorn. All right, I'm going to pause this because I got to go get Maisie.